Welcome to the Swamps, builders. This week we're taking a look at middle-aged Satis, Miasma, a direct evolution from their early age incarnation, while definitely seeing some changes, if not modernization. Let's take a look. Satis is a swampy river valley surrounded by sandy deserts. In the fertile valley, a sacred kingdom of lizard-like humanoids has formed. The kingdom is ancient by human standards, and its wisdom and magical knowledge are great. At the top of society is the Lizard King. The king is the highest priest of Satis. Under the king are the high priests with their sacred serpents. The lizards are herbivores, but have enslaved a race of carnivorous lizardmen who serve as soldiers and workers. The Satisians are somewhat slow in movement, but have thick hides that protect them from cuts and bruises. Both lizard races are cold-blooded and become exhausted very quickly when fighting in cold provinces. They have partial resistance to poisons. The inhabitants of Satis prefer to live in warm provinces. With the coming of the new god, the swamps of Satis have begun to spread. Dense rains and oppressive heat turn the lands into unhealthy marshlands, thick with the stench of rotting vegetation. Marshmasters have taken the place of sorrowmancers of old, and the swamp guard has replaced the chariots as elite troop. In this land, the lizards prosper. Within provinces influenced by this dominion, income is increased in provinces owned by Satis, while the income of other provinces is severely reduced. Unless cold-blooded, soldiers inside the dominion will suffer from disease. The new god and all their sacred units are immune to this effect. Underwater provinces are not affected by the special domain effect. So we have a lot going on here. We have special Dominion candles, which is very cool. I love nations that do that. I also like the call out here that, obviously, if our land is turning into swamps, having elite chariots doesn't make any sense. So I love that they changed that over to something new. And as we'll see here, we get some really cool troops that really fit in with this theme. I do want to point out, only cold-blooded and sacred units are immune to the disease. So if you find a cool indie mage, they're going to get diseased. So have a plan for that if you're going to get anybody who's not cold-blooded. For national features, we have a race that is with thick hides. We are cold-blooded, have poison resistance, and prefer heat scales too. Within that, we have the standard Satisian herbivore lizards. We have the enslaved carnivorous lizards, and now we also have the new Sobeks who have joined us, more crocodilian-like lizards. For military, we are all infantry-based. We have some slave warriors. We can summon some sacred serpents. We have large Sobek warriors and some sacred guards. Magic-wise, we have a very nice spread of good death, good nature, good water, and a little bit of astral. Very, very nice here. We have a little bit of communion play, and we can get these other ones into communions, although rarely. We have about 2 to 3 reliably in these other paths, which is really, really nice. Even your worst random rolled Marshmaster will still be useful. And if you get lucky, you can get something really nice. And for a non-soul to recruit, non-cap only main mage, very handy, very handy. And then combine that with a very efficient researcher in Lizard Shaman, makes for a very potent magical nation. For priests, we are powerful. We have the gambit of a priest 1, 2, and 3. The 3 is a slow to recruit, non-cap only, holy 3. Cha-ching, my favorite. Dominion transforms lands into swamps. This is a terraforming effect. Our Dominion also increases our own income and reduces it for everyone else. I have not been able to definitively find what the number is, but the number I found talked about was 1% per Dominion strength. So if we have 10 candles, we would get 10% more, and if somebody else owned a 10 candle land of ours, they would have negative 10%. And we'll talk about this later, but that's actually really important for us. It has to do with the way that terraforming and swamps interact with population. Also, our Dominion diseases non-cold-blooded units. I will definitely forget at some point and recruit something, and then I will be very sad when it dies of disease. For scales and blesses, we have a heat limit of +1, and building-wise, we make standard forts of the era. For sites, we have 2. We have the Temple Marsh, which is where we get our Swamp Guard and all of our Sobek units, and it provides us with 2 death, 2 nature, and 1 water gem. Pretty good spread. We also have the Empoisoner's Guild, which allows a cap-only Poison Slinger and a cap-only Mage Assassin. Both pretty good units here. Units and Sacreds. We have a pretty wide spread here, although it's not too bad on being overly redundant, but there definitely are a few that are kind of stinkers. Speaking of our first stinker, we have the Militia. This is the basic Cetizian chassis. The Militia specifically is 7 gold, 2 resources, 5 recruitment. We have 11 HP, 10 strength, and bad attack and defense. The standard traits of a Cetizian are 5 poison resistance, being cold-blooded, having swimming, and swamp survival. Cold-blooded isn't nearly as bad as it used to be in older dominions, but it is still pretty crippling. You get +2 encumbrance per cold scale. So in cold 2, you would have +4 encumbrance to whatever you normally have. So this boyo here, being naked with a spear, would have 8 encumbrance. That is horrific. So we really, really, really do not want to fight in the cold, if at all possible. Otherwise, this is a very garbage unit. I don't think I would ever recruit this. We have better options for defense than just cramming these in there. They're not going to do anything if you get attacked either. Next up, we have the Cetizian Heavy Infantry and the City Guard. The very similar units. Let's look at the City Guard first. This is 10 gold, 10 resources, 11 recruitment points. Generally speaking, we want about a 1-to-1 recruitment to resources. So for order production, I would keep those the same if you can help it. We have the standard chassis stats, but now we've done some training. This guy has castle defense bonus, and this is why I say I would never get the Militia. I think even in a dire circumstance, I would rather get these guys. Not only could they actually do a little bit of fighting at the gates, they have city defense bonus, taking their siege defense up to a full 1 point compared to a Militia, which will be, I believe it's a half point. Yeah, half point. So I would definitely take these guys over them. Equipment-wise, we have a length 3 spear that we have 10 attack. We are wearing a scale mail cuirass, and we have a shield. Unfortunately, we're not wearing helmets. However, if you're fighting things that are not firing arrows, I think these guys are actually okay. Cetis, in my opinion, is mostly a scales nation, so you will be able to just have legions of lizards march out. Now, if you want to upgrade from here, however, I do think that the Cetizian Heavy Infantry is better. We have the same stats. We have lost the castle defense, but in trade, we have added an iron cap. So we are at 10 gold, 15 resources, 11 recruitment. We are paying, 5 resources for an iron cap, but that really kind of protects us here. Do note, Cetizians have 5 natural protection. So once we have put all that gear on, our head is at 19 and our body is at 16. So 15, 16 is what I would consider at the beginning of heavy infantry in Middle Age. You could argue maybe that's medium, but that's semantics. Either way, I think these are heavy enough to be good mainline troops. Do note, because they have that much natural protection, bark skin isn't going to be super effective, although it will still up that a little bit if you go that route. Overall, I like these guys quite a bit. Do note they're very slow combat speed, but that actually kind of works out in our favor when we talk about magic and what we want to do with that. So overall, pretty good troop here. Again, though, 7 encumbrance in just neutral temperatures. If we were to add 2, 4, 6 to that, these guys are going to exhaust themselves very, very quickly. So these guys are more of a stand there and block for you than get in there and be your main killing force. Next up, we have Cetizian Light Infantry, and this is a very light infantry. He has a shield and no armor on. Standard chassis of a Cetizian, wielding a spear, and he has javelins. Overall, I don't like this troop, but I do find them usable. The reason is, I believe when the AI uses fire archers, I think they target these, and I want them to target those over our poison slingers if we have them. If I didn't have poison slingers, I probably would not bring these guys along with me. But if I'm going to have poison slingers, I like to have a few of these to kind of be the arrow catchers. They're not great at it, but even naked, they have 5 protection and they do have a shield. they're okay. They're arrow catchers though. Don't expect too much else from them. Take a look at our next regular Statistician troop. That is going to be the Falchineer. This is a troop I actually like quite a bit. So 15 protection, and that is actually 14 and 19. So really good protection on a dual wielder that has 11 attack with 2 attacks at 18 damage. That's really good at size 3. So 6 attacks per square is really nice, and these are quality attacks too. So if you're fighting something that you're not going to get too repelled and you're not going to have struggle to hit too badly, these guys can be blenders, absolute blenders. So like low quality troops, these guys will have no problem with. Do note, with many of our troops, morale 10 here, 9, 9, 9. We're not very brave lizards, so this is more of a grindy combat type troop, but you're definitely going to want to do whatever you can to get his morale up, because, yeah, you don't want to get slaughtered on a retreat, and you'll notice a lot of problems with morale on Satis, I think. Next up, we have our 3 slave lizards. We have the runner. I don't use these guys too much. What they're good for is decent combat speed, hold and attack rear. They have 2 attacks. They're dirt cheap, 12, 2, 7. It's not bad. They're slave units, so they have like no upkeep basically. And we do have a taskmaster unit that could lead them. But with only 3 protection, I think they're overshadowed by their 2 bigger brothers. The slave warrior, which is similar, not quite as fast, has a trident, which is a pretty scary weapon, and the elite warrior. I actually like the elite warrior. I think giving him at least the chest piece keeps him in the fight a little bit longer, and these are good attack stats. A length 3 weapon with 12 attack and 20 piercing damage, so pretty good. Can actually get some repels, can hit pretty hard, and a secondary attack with a bite. So quite good. Good attack density, okay speed, hold an attack rear, hold an attack closest from the flanks. Overall, pretty darn nice unit. Should be noted, let me jump back to Falchineers. They are a little expensive on recruitment. 13, 17, 18 is not a cheap unit, so keep that in mind. Again, I think we're looking at scales for this nation. Next up, we have a cap-only unit. This is the Poison Slinger. These ones are very interesting. 24 gold, 6 resources, 32 recruitment, so very high on recruitment points. Standard chassis. They have a dagger and a poison sling. This is a range 15 cloud attack. So it is a cloud strength 3. I think that just means you do 3 damage with the initial poison hit, but then it leaves a cloud behind with area of effect 1. Remember, with clouds, they don't stack in intensity anymore, they stack in size. So if I have 3 of these guys hit the same square, the cloud will get bigger. They're relatively imprecise, and it's pretty noticeable, especially on our mage assassin, how imprecise this is. So you do need a certain number of them to just blanket the field. And we have 12 ammunition, which is pretty good. I like these guys a lot. Do note that the poison effect is strong enough that 5 poison resistance that most of our troops have is not enough to keep them 100% safe. They usually don't die from it, but they will get hit with the poison. Our bigger boys have more more poison resist, and they can basically ignore that. In addition, if we are doing undead, the undead generally are immune to the poison. So a very good unit. It's a bit pricey, and it is cap only, but because of the dynamics of what we can recruit, I definitely think they're worthwhile. Do note this is our only like true range unit. Otherwise we only have some javelins. Finally, we have another cap-only unit. This is the Sobek Warrior. A very, very nice unit. They are size 5 of note right away, so 2 per square. They are 30 gold, 34 resources, 13 recruitment. So you could kind of pair these guys up with poisoners to balance out your resource and recruitment needs, because they're both cap only. 25 HP, 14 strength, and good training. They wield a falchion and have a bite, both of which are attack 12, so pretty good. And they have full armor. Full scale mail, an iron cap, and a shield gives them 20 and 21 protection. So a very heavy troop here. in the Sobek Warriors. Unfortunately, I wish this wasn't cap only. I wish it was fort swamp only, and that would make these way cooler. As is, they're very powerful, but because it is a cap only unit, kind of limited. Next, we have our first sacred, the Swamp Guard. This is a cap only unit. It is a regular Cetician who is sacred, and that's it. He's essentially a Falchineer with heavy armor while being sacred. I do get these guys if I have extra holy points left over, but they're nothing to write home about, for sure. These are like ever so slightly better than human sacred troops. We also, however, get the Sobek Sacred Guard. This is a cap-only sacred, and it is limited to 2 per turn. That is very unfortunate. If these guys were not limited, I think this nation would be an amazing blessed nation, because these guys are rock solid. 55 gold, 37 resources, very expensive, but remember, you're only getting 2 per turn, and you really want to get those 2 per turn. 37 HP, 16 strength, 13 attack, very nice. For protection, 21 head and body. Basically, Cetician things, but better poison resistance while being sacred. He has the full scale mail and an iron cap, and he is using a halberd, which is a length 4, attack 12, piercing, slashing 30 damage, and he also has a bite. These guys are really good, and if you can find a bless that they can make use of, pretty darn potent. Pretty darn potent. Just their very, very limited nature makes me sad. I think I'd like it more if they were maybe 2 holy points to recruit, but no cap. So you could go up to 5 of them, maybe. I don't know. Either way, it is what it is. Very, very good unit. Definitely worth using. Heroes, Commanders, and Prophet. For heroes, we have a pretty big slew, although nothing too special here. We have the Lizard Hero. This is a better leader than most. He has slightly better gear. I think this is technically magic. Yeah, magic rainbow armor. He's a really good leader. We have the Guildmaster, 3 death, 3 nature, and he's an assassin. Pretty decent there. If I got him, though, I'd probably use him as a mage, not an assassin. He's just too good at magic to use as an assassin, but he's all right. We have the Ancient Shaman. He is a 2 astral, which I think is as high as we go. 2 nature. He is a Taskmaster +3. Again, I would just use him as a mage, essentially. We have the Sobek High Priest. He is a better than normal Holy 3, Priest level 3. Otherwise, he's okay. And we have the Sobek Sorrowmancer. 2 water, 3 death, 2 nature, and he is sacred. Cool. He's a free mage. Overall, very usable. I don't think any of these are complete stinkers, but neither are they like nation-defining ones. So happy to get them. Livable if you don't. For commanders, we have a pretty decent spread here, and while it looks a little bit bloated, everyone here, barring this guy, has a distinct purpose. So we don't have a dedicated scout. We start with a Taskmaster. He is a naked lizard with a whip. He's kind of kinky, and he gives you 50 leadership, but has Taskmaster +2. So overall, if you wanted to use your carnivorous slave troops, you could lead them with this guy, but generally speaking, I'm just going to take a better leader, especially because this guy has a decent chance of dying to an arrow, whereas the other guys are wearing armor and possibly have a shield. So usable, he's okay, I don't love him. Next, we have the Commander of Cetis. This is the commander of your starting army. Another one that I don't particularly care for. Only 75 leadership, so you don't get formations. He has standard stats. He is at least wearing gear. He's got iron cap, scale mail, hauberk, and a shield. Overall, I don't get this guy. I never recruit them because I would rather have a lizard lord. Very similar, but 100 leadership, so now we have formations. He's still only 1 recruitment point. 95 gold, 21 resources isn't bad. He wields a falchion and has an iron cap, full scale mail, and a shield. Usable. We have a different commander that I prefer to lead actual combat around with, but for building forts and moving reinforcements around, Lizard Lord gets it done. Next up, we have the Herodul. This is our priest level 1. It is a female lizard. I don't get these. If I was going to get them, it would be to go out and maybe build some temples, but I think I will show you why I do it with the high priest instead. They are only one recruitment point, so you could get 2 of them out at a time. Maybe you need to do a lot of banishing, and you think that having more holy ones is better than having holy 2s. I'm not 100% sold on that, though. Next up, we have the High Priest of Satis. This is a 2 recruitment points, so you only get 1 per turn. He is a priest level 2, which is kind of the sweet spot for me and doing banishes. But his main gig is he has Temple Trainer. He can, at a temple, spend his turn summoning in 1 Sacred Serpent. Of note, you can only have 1 priest per temple doing this. The Sacred Serpent is this chassis right here. So you get 1 per High Priest at a temple per turn. These are actually pretty decent. Their protection's a smidgen low. I'd love to get them some protection buffs. They're size 5, so they fit in pretty well. They have good attack at 14. Venomous Fangs is a decent attack. It has strong poison, which is poison magic damage 15. Not too bad. And they hit hard enough to get through most armor. But they die in droves, unfortunately. Very low defense, not great protection. Their big claim to fame is that they are sacred and that they are standards. Do note I have a large bless here, so these stats are slightly inflated on him. But as a standard and having major morale issues on our army, I find these pretty important. I try to sprinkle these in as heavily as I can with all of my formations. Do note they are cold-blooded, so they're safe from our disease. Otherwise, I guess they should be noted as having good magic resist for an animal and very good morale. But otherwise, nothing too much going on here. Definitely going to want them, and you probably want as many as you can get. They do, for some reason, also have upkeep, even though they are respawn, kind of, sort of. Next up, we have the Lizard King. This is our priest level 4. It is slow to recruit, but you can recruit it from any fort, so that's pretty nice. They're pretty pricey at 340, but I quite like these guys. I love having Holy 3s. They simplify your life greatly, and having at least one of these in every army to bless everybody and do a little bit of Servant's Courage, and then just whop people with whatever your smite spell is. Pretty handy. They do note they don't have any armor on, so his body protection is only 5, but you could do worse than that. He would sure like a little piece of armor if you could spare it, but because they're not super rare and hard to get, maybe you just eat the cost and recruit another one. Next, we have the Lizard Shaman, the old classic. Astral 1, Nature 1. He is sacred, but not a priest. They do 9 research for 50 gold per year, so very efficient. They have our standard Statistician stats. He has a mace and a bite for melee weapons, and he is wearing a crown. Overall, I think these are very good troops. They're your most efficient researcher. They can commune up to do stuff, and having Nature 1 is a perfectly fine combat path. You can find things for them to do, and then combine that with Astral, so you have the option to commune up to bigger things, or even do some low-level Astral stuff like Body Ethereal or Starfires. Very, very nice mage. I love it when your main research mage can also double in combat. Next up, we have the Marshmaster, an incredible mage. What a champion. Not cap only, not slow to recruit. 330 gold for a water, 2 death, 2 nature, and 110% of water, astral, death, nature. That is so sweet. That is so sweet. If you get the astral, that means you can plug into a communion. If you get the water, that means that you can do some summons that you normally wouldn't be able to do. If you get the Death 3 is incredible. Great summons, great combat magic. Ditto with Nature 3. So no matter what you roll, you're getting something good out of this. You could get very lucky and get a second path. I think I have one of those in this game. Very, very nice. 17 research looks good on the 10, but it's 264 upkeep. So if you're getting these guys, get them and get them out fighting. They're not people who you want to sit around at home and do research. That being said, great. Absolutely great. You want the money to be able to have reoccurring recruitment on these guys in as many forts as you can. Great mage. Next, we have the Sobek General. This is a cap-only Sacred Commander. I like these guys a lot. 200 gold, 31 resources, only cost 1 recruitment point. And you get, it's essentially the Sobek warrior from before. 20 on the body, 21 on the head. He does have full armor, although no shield. He has a falchion and a bite, so you could give him a shield if you wanted to. He has Taskmaster +1, 100 leadership, and 10 poison resist. Very, very nice. I usually will make one of these my prophet at the beginning of the game, and if he were to die, then I would go make a high priest my prophet. The reason being, I want to get some Dominion out and spreading ASAP. I don't want to wait until I can afford a slow to recruit Lizard King that has a decent chance of dying. So I usually start with a Sobek General as my prophet. That means turn 1, I recruit 2 of these guys. Turn 2, I prophetize him. And turn 3, I generally head out for expansion. So a little bit slow, but a very solid one. That also gives you time to get some Sobek guards, which are very handy. They will often survive through your entire expansion phase if you're careful with them. Finally, we have the Empoisoner. Unfortunately, he is cap only. I really wish he wasn't. It's kind of ironic that our best mage is not cap only, and this guy is. He is 125 gold, 6 resources, 2 recruitment points, Death 1, Nature 1, and Assassin level 2. Very nice. Poison Dagger, Poison Sling. The way I like to do these guys is you summon a couple skeletons and then you start flinging poison clouds at people. Do note, you will lose, generally speaking, to Nature 1 Shaman, because the Nature 1 Shaman is going to summon some trees, which will hold off your undead. And if you poison the Shaman, they often heal themselves. So in the game behind me here, I had like a double Nature Shaman here, and I had 3 assassins all die to Nature 1 Shaman. So be aware of that. Another one that's nasty is things that have glamour summons. So over here at this throne, I was trying to assassinate. There were some glamour mages, and I could not beat them with assassins. The glamour troops are immune to poison. So yeah, we just failed horrifically. Against things like normal commanders, normal priests, normal barbarians, though, very, very good. Very, very good for expansion. And you could also throw a handful of acorns on this guy. I think that'd be probably the play. Or you could give him a skull talisman, but the acorns aren't banishable. Make him even better at assassinating things. So pretty darn nice there, although you're never going to have as many as you wish you did because he's cap only. Very unfortunate for that. As for national items, we have no national items. As for national spells, we have several, and they're all in Conjuration. At Conjuration 3, we have Pride of Lions, the standard lines that we always see. We have Sacred Crocodiles at Conjuration 4. And do note, these are natively castable. We do need to random into a water too, but that's not super duper rare. The downside for Sacred Crocodiles is it's only 1 nature gem, so really, really gem efficient. Really, really not mage efficient because you only get 1. Come on, Illwinter. Come on. Wait, what are we doing here? That being said, I do like the crocodile chassis on this nation specifically. We'll look at them here in a second. But just note, you're never going to have very many of these because this is hard to do. Next, we have Monster Toads. This one's all right. It's at Conjuration 5, so we're getting a little bit high. Nature 2 to summon the Monster Toad. 5 gems, and that nets you 3 of the Monster Toads. At Conjuration 7, we have Contact Quarrel. And just our normal Shaman can actually do this. So this is probably the most efficient because you can summon in a mage and with a cheap mage to do it. Very nice. I like Quaddles. And at 8, we have Scorpion Men. Let's take a look at those. So our standard lions here, as usual, I don't particularly love these guys. They do have dark vision, so if you're trying to go underground and you need it, that could help. Otherwise, Especially note, they are not cold-blooded, so they will get diseased. Next, we have crocodiles. Very nice. Look at this. 73 HP. Not bad. A very damaging attack that he's okay with, if not great. Undisciplined animals. They do have 8 magic resist. They have good morale. I would like some of these. Do note they're size 8, so they could push their way to the front. while still kind of being surrounded by other troops, which I like that. I like that mechanic a lot. But how many Water 2, Nature 2 guys do you have? And are you willing to have their almost 270 gold a year upkeep sit around and summon these? If you are, they're pretty good. I almost would say if you could find some Amazons that have Nature 1, Water 1, and then build them boosters, I would prefer that than have a Marshmancer summon these. But if you like them, they're definitely usable. Monster Toads, we get 3 of these at a time, and these are pretty good actually. Poison Skin 20 is amazing if you're fighting things that have length 0, like mounts. You will just kill them if they're not immune to poison. They have a Poison Cloud. 5 is 5 squares of size. And remember, the size gets bigger, not more intense when there's more of them. Pretty good. Your normal troops don't have enough poison resistance to be immune to these guys, but your Sobeks do. Do note they're tramplers. So these guys will, generally speaking, hit the front line and then go deeper into it. At 8 protection and 2 defense, though, they'll get chopped up. But before they do, they will do a good job of delivering a nice whiff of poison to everybody. So think of these guys as a suicide squad. And they're pretty good at it. I like them. Especially if you're using Sobek, so you're not going to kill your own troops with them. They would sure like to get some protection buffing, or maybe you could get Body Ethereal, and that would make them much, much better. Next, we have the Quaddle, a great mage. We can use a Astral 1 to jump us to Astral 3, Nature 3, Priest level 2. They are flying. I do think that this guy would make an interesting Prophet chassis because he is so mobile compared to our very, very slow Lizard troops. Map move 28 with flying is great. Not very high protection, but he can self-buff, including Body Ethereal. Very good. I like this guy. Good leader. Has an attack, but frankly, you're only going to use him as a mage. So if you get this far, great use of nature gems. Great use. Right off the bat, you could just use him to cast anti-magic on turn 1. And if nothing else, that's already a pretty good use. He could also do like Light of the Northern Star for a bunch of shaman to do something bigger. Or just plug it into a communion to do some really big astral magic. Or even nature magic. And shaman are the perfect support for that. So let's say we had 4 shaman supporting him. That takes him to 5/5. You could do the really big nature battlefield stuff at 5. And he probably won't even blow up his shaman because you'd have 4 of them splitting it with him. So incredibly good if you can get far enough to get him. And finally, we have the Scorpion Man, everyone's favorite thing to not summon. He's really cool. I never go high enough to actually get him. Maybe someday. Great chassis. Almost like a very heavy thug or even light super combatant level troop. For other magic, we have a lot of things that we want. Conjuration for all of our national spells. In addition, in Conjuration, we have lots of undead summoning things, which we are pretty good at. And we have Dark Knowledge. Now, I'm kind of torn. I like Dark Knowledge, but we're probably going to have Marshmasters go out and search, trying to get either Nature 3 searches done or Water 2/3 searches done. So you're already guaranteed to be searching for Death 2, maybe even Death 3 with one of those guys. So in this case, I don't know. Maybe if I think there's a death site somewhere and I'm not finding it with those, maybe I pop one of these. But we definitely can spend death gems with no trouble. So I'm not sure I waste it here. Other than that, I would say one of the big ones could be Tartarin Gate. This summons in feeble-minded Titan chassis, essentially. Do note you need bone mending or body stitching, or no, corpse stitching to heal that, not normal recuperation or healing. If you got this far, very cool. We don't have anything natively near that. The best we could possibly do is a Death 4, and that's super duper rare, like less than 1%. So we'd have a Death 3 trying to climb that far. I don't know about that. In Alteration, we do have Astral and we do have Nature. So all the nature buffs that we always see, including Moss Body possibly, could be good. Body Ethereal. Our troops are really good chassis actually for taking buffs. So we would like just Bark Skin even, just to give them a little bit of extra oomph. So here, +1 if it's 9 or higher. So we don't have high natural protection. We have 5, so we could go up to 10. So that would make our troops very, very good with barkskin type stuff. Swarm's also kind of interesting, just to give us more chaff, give our other mages time to do things. We could roll into guys who can use Bone Melter. Bone Melter is a magic resistance or die air effect 1 spell, which is pretty good. We do have enough death that we could have people doing Soul Vortex. I don't think we'd want to do that on normal Marshmasters, but maybe if we have Come Back to Life, maybe we have a Death God that's using lots of death magic. That's a maybe. Darkness, if we're doing the Undead route or Foul Vapors route, could be pretty handy. We could get to this somewhat easily. We need a booster because it does cost 4, so we can't use gems to get ourselves there. But once we do, we could totally cast that. Okay, it's okay. Evocation, I would specifically call it. I mean, of course, Web and Vine Arrow is whatever, but the death magic is actually pretty good. Bolt of Unlife, or even better, Shadow Blast, especially if you're lobbing this into Undead. Area of Effect 9+ is not too shabby for an 8+ armor negating magic resist for half. And you can paralyze things that hit. So, very good spell. Having 3 or 4 guys lobbing this can be devastating. And we're guaranteed to get Death 2s on Marshmasters. So, some Marshmasters getting a bunch of skeletons in front, and then a couple of them lobbing this into the horde. Pretty powerful. Pretty dang powerful. Blast of Unlife, of course. I think that's kind of where we end on that. We could do Stygian Reigns, but we don't have magic weapons naturally, so I don't think we're a nation that really wants to do this. Maybe if you took magic weapons on your Bless, maybe you would think about doing this. So invulnerability 15 to everyone on the battlefield, but then you have magic weapons to ignore it. Could be interesting. For construction, we probably need Thistle Maces, we probably need Death Boosters, we probably need Water Boosters. If we get to 5, we could get Homunculi for our research boosting. A lot of stuff we would really like out of construction. Also, the Cure All Elixir could allow us to give that to non-cold-blooded mages to heal the disease and keep them alive. So that could also be pretty powerful. Cornucopia for temporary nature gems, for, say, Foul Vapors. Very powerful there. Enchant, I feel, is our bread and butter. We want lots of undead summoning, culminating in Horde of Skeletons at 5. We can get a lot of skeletons out as Satis. And at 6, we would be able to do Foul Vapors. Now, Foul Vapors does hit hard enough that our Poison Resist 5 guys are not immune. So you're going to want to have a little bit extra poison resist, at least on your mages and leadership. And maybe you just sacrifice the troops. Or maybe you try to get the poison resistance buff up and running for them. So Poison Ward here at 4 is pretty easy for us to cast and get that out. It's decent size. So yeah, very, very powerful. Very bread and butter for us, I would say. Also, we want to look at Twiceborn. Twiceborn will, if you die, you will come back as an undead version of yourself, possibly with some extra magic paths. It can be worth Twiceborning. I probably wouldn't try to do it on every Marshmaster unless I was swimming in death gems, but maybe your death 3s or death 4s, maybe they get to be Twiceborn just in case they die. Pale Riders, of course, could be pretty good here. Rigor Mortis also. We're going to transform the land into swamps, and Rigor Mortis makes more fatigue plays. So we won't have the swamp issue, but the enemy will, hopefully. And with Rigor Mortis going on, it'll slow them down even more. In addition, where's Quagmire? I always forget where that one is. Yeah, Quagmire at 5. Now, we don't get water 4s, but even a water... Well, you'd have to go to water 3 somehow, and then you could gem it. But all units without swamp survival, so basically everything we have that, get -1 attack, -1 defense, and +2 encumbrance. So Quagmire, plus Rigor Mortis, plus being in a swamp, plus being diseased. Like, we're stacking up so many debuffs. Maybe darkness, like, can be very, very crippling for people to have to fight us. Thaumaturgy, we have communions, of course. And it may be worth grabbing Mind Burn, so a small communion, and then you can do some Mind Burning. Mind Burning is a pretty good spell. Beyond that, you could do some of the water fatigue stuff. I'm not in love with it. We can easily search for nature, so I don't think we need that particularly. I probably wouldn't go too high. We don't have fire, which I absolutely love the new fire buffs. Yeah, not in love with anything deeper than that, so I would probably stop at 2 here. So overall, we have a lot of magic that we would like to do. I think you start probably in enchant, and then you sprinkle in construction, alteration, and conjuration. And then if you get that far, you ice it with some extra evocation, maybe the Shadow Blast. So pretty good. You can see in my test game here, quite a lot of expansion, and I am at the point of the game where I'm using lots of Marshmasters in my armies, and they are doing great things for me in all those combats. All right, let's bring it all together. So one thing to note here is this map did not start with all of these swamps. I had one here, and I think I had like one here and here. These other ones have transformed. Now, we're already slow and we have swamp survival, so we're not slowed down any more by these, whereas the enemy probably will be. But the problem with these swamps is, if we look at population, standard size province, ideal for about 10,000 people. This is based on what type of terrain it is. If we come over here to this farmland, also 10,000, but you'll note how many more people are here. And that is because of the terrain population bonus. Satis itself started out at 40,000 people. I've done nothing and had no events happen here that affected population. And we are down to 36,000 with an ideal of 25. So base pop growth, density bonus, that's how many people there are. Terrain population bonus, minus 0.5. That is actually pretty crippling. That is pretty crippling. If we look at another swamp here, minus 0.4. We look at one over here, minus 0.3. Swamps are horrific for population. So you're going to have high pop areas, and they're going to dwindle rapidly. So ideal pop is 15,000. We're still barely positive, so this is going to sit at around 18,000. So just know that you are going to lose pop in high pop areas. So that's bad. That's really bad. I even have growth 1 on this nation. I could see maybe an argument to be made to try to do some blood hunting. I'm not sure how you would do it because we don't do it natively. But if you had a god that you took some blood bless with, maybe you blood hunt your capital a little bit because you're going to lose the pop anyways. Maybe you could have better use for them. I don't know. Remember that our candles give us extra income based on strength, and it gives the enemy a reduction. So in this game, I haven't really been able to push my dominion into anyone else's, I guess, other than just right here. So they're getting some penalty on income from this. And if they don't get rid of this, in about 20-25 turns, it'll turn into a swamp like this one did. It's a very defensive ability, so you're going to be slow. You're going to fight in swamps, which most units don't have swamp survival, and you're going to get diseased. It is crippling to fight Satis in their own dominion. Now, conversely, if you have a cold dominion, it is crippling for Satis to attack you. Bear that in mind. In this game, I expanded pretty well, but slow. This is essentially the end of year 2, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. 20 provinces. Actually, no. And I have the underground here. So, let's call it 26. Pretty decent, but it was slow. And I got cut off here very early, so I kind of had to go this way. So I have this really awkward, wide border where I could be attacked from down here. I'm in a war here. I'm sure this will kick off, and I've got my cap and a throne that are relatively exposed. So that's a bit of an oof. Also note, flying nations can ignore my movement penalty and get in and at least get one battle off before they're all diseased. And Nazca here will have undead, so that's not going to bother them quite as much. But just food for thought there. Because we have good non-cap onlys, we have our Holy Threes, and we have our Marshmasters, we want a lot of infrastructure. So 1 castle, 2 castles. I'm building one 3, 4. I'm going to build one here 5. So we want lots and lots of infrastructure. I feel like Satis is kind of a slow march. You want to push your dominion out. You want to make things into swamps because it hurts the enemy more than it hurts you. You want to build lots of infrastructure. I really wish that the castles protected population from leaving because of swamps. A little sad that they don't. But as you can see here, pretty healthy income. I'm doing lots of recruitment. I've got like 3 pretty good sized armies. I did lose a bunch of losses here last turn. It was a big throne battle. So overall, slow and ponderous though. There's like one place on this entire map that I can move 2 territories. Everywhere else is 1 at a time. So I cannot rely on, oh, I'm just going to recruit everything up here, and if I have trouble, I'll just rush over there. You need to have border armies ready to respond to problems, because you will really, really suffer trying to march out from your capital only. Okay, let's take a look at Pretender design. Middle-aged Satis has a, I would call them medium amount of chassis here. Notably, they don't have a lot of immobiles for some reason. Maybe they all sunk into the swamp. As for immobiles, I think these are all good. Do remember the monument, the Sphinx one, it has a special thing where they cannot teleport. Just food for thought. That bit me once, so it always reminds me when I look at him. He would be interesting in being able to raise your order scales higher, which might be useful to you. I don't think we need super duper high. I think 2's fine. The Blood Fountain raises our magic skills, could be interesting, but Turmoil's, I don't think, particularly great for us. Could be a cheap Blood Bless, though. And the Oracle also has Fortune Teller, could be useful, and breaks us into some different pathing. On the Titans, my same problems I always have with the Titans. I feel like they're just overpriced. Even the Death 3 people here, we got Stupid Demi-Lich, and we have the Netter of the Underworld. We have other Death 3s down here, which could be more useful, possibly. Demi-Lich at 120, Lich Queen at 140. I think I actually like Lich Queen a lot more than I like Stupid Demi-Lich. Moving to Dominion 2, well, no, before we move on, I do want to call out Netter of the Moon. Magic Scale and Luck Scale. You could get him somewhat cheaply. If you're going just pure scales, and then he could help do research, possibly. If you were going to go that route and you're going into astral magic, maybe magic weapons, maybe magic penetration, I could see both of those being pretty useful on this nation. In Dominion 2 monsters, we have some cool ones, although your mileage may vary. Devourer of Souls is pretty cool. He has Devour Soul, which is a Soul Slay attack. That's kind of unique. But only protection 15, so you're probably going to have to go hard skin, and he's still not going to be completely safe. He does have fear, but I'm not certain. He also is not cold-blooded, so you can end up getting disease on him. Do keep in mind here. Oh no, I guess you're safe here because you are sacred, so you dodge that bullet, but still, We have the Worm. I think that's an okay expander chassis. He also gives you the ability to get underwater, which you might like to do, just to secure your borders a little bit better. We have the Grand Sorrow Lich. Now, I don't know why he exists. He is invulnerability 25. He is immortal. He is death 3. However, he has 220 points. Why would I ever take him and not the Lich Queen for 140 points, who is invulnerability 25 and immortal? I don't know. Somebody tell me why I would take a Grand Sorrow Lich over a Lich Queen. The Lich Queen, interesting enough, I like that she's immortal. Immortality cleans up some afflictions, but not all when you regen, so just know that. I did a test game with one of these, and she got quite afflicted pretty quickly. She does raise your death scale limits, but unless you're going full on scales, that's not too bad. You can still go neutral or growth 1. We have the classic Earth Serpent. We have a Draco Lich. Could be kind of interesting here. I don't find the Draco Lich too safe, though, because he's only invulnerability 20. 25 is still a little sketch, as we saw with Dave not too long ago. But it's okay. At least you're hitting him with the Plague Breath. I don't think we want Sloth. I think we need production, so I'm not too keen on the dragons here. Yeah. Moving down to Dom 1, we have the Great Sorrowmancer. He's a Death 2 with invulnerability 15 for 100 points. I'm not convinced there. I'm not super convinced there. One I do like is Serpent King. A lot of nations get this guy, but I think he's actually okay here. He transforms into a danger noodle, into just a little snake. It's not particularly anything noteworthy, so it's not like somebody who turns into a dragon or anything, but a second form does help keep you a little bit safer. He's notable for only being 90 points, though, so pretty dang cheap, if nothing else. Otherwise, I'm not too in love with these. Maybe you do something with that blood stuff. Maybe Freak Lord is of interest there. Again, I don't know about that. Let's take a look at a couple chassis I did build. So first up, we have Know-It-All. Know-It-All is a Netter of the Moon. He took just magic weapons and dormant, and he went relatively high scale. So he's mainly trying to rush research and just really lean into our powerful magic that we get as Satis. He also has good Fortune Teller, just to keep our capital safe, where he's probably going to sit and research for the entire game. Magic weapons is nice. We don't have anything that has that natively, and when you need it, you need it. There's a lot of nations that have Astral in Middle Age, and they're going to be buffing Body Ethereal, especially on like a big God chassis. You don't have magic weapons, you feel that. You feel that quite bad. In addition, because we are so slow, having the ability of him to move 150 troops around with a gate might actually be pretty useful. I definitely could see that. So, yeah, Know-It-All's all right. I wish he could come in awake. I couldn't be awake and get okay scales, which you need scales, I think, on Satis. Our mages are our backbone, and they are not super cheap. Next, we have Lady Death. Lady Death is an awake Lich Queen. She took Fear as her bless, and a couple points in water just to afford the bless and self-buff herself. I tried to get her to be able to solo expand into easy indies, and I couldn't do it. So I think for her, she stays at home and does some research for a while, maybe rushing up enchantment so she could do some summon skeletons in front of her. Maybe that would help. If you got Soul Vortex, she'd be a lot better, but I don't think you're rushing Soul Vortex on this nation, so I wasn't too in love with this. Do note she is immortal, which is nice. If you die, you just come back the next turn. But be aware, you're not guaranteed to lose all your affliction, so you can get pretty nasty on that. Next up, we have Silkil. I quite like this guy. This is an Imprisoned, and I took Larger and Blood Vengeance. My thought is we have good scales groups, and we want heavy scales anyway. So this is full scales, barring, I guess we don't have full growth. And we went greedy. We're only at 4 domain strength, but we want to spam temples anyways to train Sacred Serpents. So it's not too bad to get that out. In addition, if your Dominion strength is too high, let's say we took 8, it actually doesn't spread very well, because oftentimes you'll go all the way up to 8 before your candles start spilling out. This will get your Dominion to spread quickly, and if you can rapidly build temples to increase the strength of it, you can hold those borders pretty well. So this is a little risky, but I think it pays off. The larger buff actually plays pretty well for our nation. We have lots of sacred mages or priests that are going to be in combat. That's just some free HP for them. Our big Sobek warriors are just bags of HP that are somewhat killy, but you're never going to have good attack density anyways. Our Sacred Serpents are also just bags of HP. They have like no defense. So we combine that with Blood Vengeance. When we wake up, all of a sudden our units that we were basically just blockers all of a sudden become landmines. And people that are throwing AoE spells into us will rapidly find themselves gotten rid of via that. And little chaff things trying to tie up our big Sobek warriors will just blow themselves up on Blood Vengeance. Satis and Blood Vengeance seems to kind of be a theme with their sacreds. In addition, if we use the monster toads, again, Suicide units that run in and get killed, well, they're going to take a few more out with them. Sacred crocodiles, humongous bags of HP. Have fun chewing your way through those while you're getting blood vengeanced. As a chassis, this is what he turns into. Nothing great. He's just a mage. In addition, this does give us some blood, so maybe he breaks us into blood later. You could empower. I would probably empower a marsh, like a Death 3 marsh guy in blood, is the route I would take rather than empowering him in death. At Nature 5, we can do big global natures like Tree of Life or Mother Oak. And we can also do Riches from Beneath with our Earth magic. He also could make us some Dwarven Hammers, which could be rather useful. We probably do want to do a lot of crafting, and we otherwise wouldn't have any availability for that. He would like probably Gnome Lore by the time he comes out if you're going to try to do Earth stuff. Yeah, he's all right. He's all right. Because of his pathing, he also got Affliction Resistance, which is handy, although not going to save him. He's just not a combatant. I like this guy. I probably will go with him. I like this combination of high scales, an interesting Dominion score, like there's a reason for it, not just I could barely afford it. I think this worked out to 0 points left over, which I like. Larger is great in the early game, and while we don't have problems blessing, we don't have to bless larger either. And later on, Blood Vengeance is very funny. Very funny. Kind of works in our slow, methodical play style there, too. Finally, we have Nip Nip. This is another Awake Expander. He's okay. He's okay. I used him. This is the same build, I think, as I showed off in Pelagia. What you need for him to work is personal regen. Do not go anywhere until you have personal regen. Once you have personal regen, you probably want to research up to personal iron skin, which will buff his protection. He's going to be at, I think this takes us to 23. Yeah, 23, and then that takes us to like 27 or 28. And then with water magic, you can give yourself Aura of Cold, and you can give yourself Liquid Body or Quickness. So lots of self-buffing here. He does have fear. He does have some regen. And yeah, he's a competent expander. With his Earth levels, he gets Affliction Resistance. And if you Liquid Body, that'll go even higher. And between that and regen, he's relatively safe from taking afflictions. He does have Unsurroundable. Makes him a little bit harder to surround and kill. He's okay. His problem is, look at this. Look at this. We got nothing. I took 1 extra heat to pay for it. You do need pretty good Dominion scales because your HP depends on your Dominion strength where you're fighting. And you need that to be high enough so you regen enough. And we have no scales here. I don't like this guy. I don't think I could do it on here. And you need him to be awake, otherwise why are you taking an expander? So, I don't know. Maybe there's a better build here that I don't know about. I'm not seeing it. So overall, I think I like Serpent King the most. For other blesses, I've mentioned magic weapons. I've mentioned magic penetration. That ties in really well with like Bone Melter. That ties in with Mind Blast, Shadow Blast. So lots of spells that we like to do require magic saves. You can get that relatively cheap on some Astral chassis. The death stuff, maybe you could go to Tartaran Gate and summon in Tartarans, or you could do other big death globals. The blood stuff, it could be interesting. I see it. Like, if you could break into blood, you could do it pretty easy, especially if you started blood hunting early with like a blood fountain. But let's jump back into a designer. So if we took the blood fountain, let's see, we want him awake. What are we going to take? Maybe just enchanted blood. All right. What can we afford here? That's actually not too bad. So we're going to want that. Oh, yeah, he does turmoil, so we can only go up to +1. Maybe a growth to help counteract that a little bit. Okay. Yeah, I could see it. So remember, he actually has Blood Searcher 3. So he's going to actually be a really, really good blood hunter. So we go with some early blood and we empower some Death 3 Marshmasters and mid/late game. So we'd probably still go enchant first, but then maybe we get a cheeky blood and we rush up blood and summon in some vampires. They're undead, so we wouldn't have to worry about the disease problem. I could see it. I could see it. This is kind of non-standard. Enchant Blood isn't terrible. The extra magic resistance is kind of whatever, but the regen, even if it's small, isn't bad. Sobek Sacred Guards are very, very tough, and just giving them a little bit of regen would make them very, very hard to kill. A lot of our summons are big HP bags, so that'd be fine for them too. Yeah, I could see that. I could see that. Non-standard, and you are kind of a gross target because of the disease and the swamps. So people would generally leave you alone if you're not being super aggressive, and they can't rush you down. So as long as you survive the early game, this gives you a interesting late game. I like that. I like that. I don't think I would play it, but we'll go ahead and save him just in case people absolutely love him. That's interesting, at least, if nothing else. In conclusion, middle-age Satis is an evolution from their early age counterpart. That evolution continues into late age, which is probably in Dom 6 their strongest form by far. But middle age, they're very respectable. We have good heavy troops, although they're kind of cap only. We have usable troops from everywhere else. And we have a very, very strong both Holy 3 and just recruit anywhere mage. We have some assassin availability. We have some poison play. We have some unique Dominion mechanics. I quite like them. They're good at what they do. They do something different. They don't feel like a reskin of a human nation. They do feel like they're doing their own thing. We have a very small amount of redundancy within our troops. Everyone kind of has their purpose, which I like. We have good gem income. We have usable, if a little bit iffy on the summons. I think the highlights here are definitely the Quaddle and maybe the Toad and the Crocodile, perhaps. Very fun nation. Good death. Good death magic without being a death nation, which I think is pretty cool. Okay, builders, let me know what your thoughts are about Satis. This is a pretty unique nation, so it wouldn't surprise me if I missed some obscure mechanic here. Do you have any experience playing them or fighting against them? How annoying do you find their income mechanics with the Dominion / their disease mechanics? I think it's very cool. All right, I will catch you on the stream for this one. Hopefully it was enjoyable. Get out there and flood some land. Let's go build some marshes, builders.